everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Belgian Football Podcast. My name is Ben Jackson, and I'll be your host for this episode. And as per usual, I'm joined by Scott and Yoris. Scott and Yoris, how are you guys doing this evening?
Hey guys, hello everyone.
All good, all good.
Excellent. I mean, we had a little bit of kind of a goalless weekend, I guess we could say, but we still had some dramatic action. So let's just dive straight in. We'll do kind of what we did last week, where we don't reveal the results, just in case you haven't seen them and you want to be surprised, but I'm sure most of you have. We'll start with Friday night's game, which was in the second and playoff 2. It was KV Mechelen against Genk. This one wasn't a goalless game, that's for sure. 6 goals were scored in this one. It was Genk who took the leads in the 33rd minute through Daniel Munoz. A really nice pass from Ito, kind of between two defenders. Munoz running at it from the edge of the box, put it away. Jeffrey Hermans then equalised in the 60th minute for Mechelen. This was after he'd hit the crossbar like a couple of minutes earlier. He finished off kind of a ball bobbling around in the box. He put it away, so he did get that goal. But if he'd scored the first one, it'd have been a much better goal. It was a bit of a screamer from the edge of the box. Tia Bongonda then came on, had a point to prove, and he definitely proved that in the 80th minute. Really nice goal, running across the box and then smashing it back in on the other side. This is in the 80th minute when the game sort of like kicked off a little bit more with goals. Rob Skurs then equalised again for Mechelen in the 84th, made it 2 apiece. Bongonda then scored a free kick as well. So Schuster scored a free kick, kind of catching Van der Voort out. Bongonda then scored a free kick himself 3 minutes later before Joseph Pansel finished it off in the 94th minute to give Genk a 4-2 win. So this means Genk are now 2 from 2 in terms of wins in the playoff and really pushing Ghent in first place. Yoris, obviously it's your team, so we always go to you first on Genk. How did you feel about the performance in this one? And did you enjoy those last 10 minutes of all the goals?
It was a weird game for sure. Also, from the level of both teams as well, it was a bit shaky. Sometimes it was like Genk was quite bad in the beginning, while Mechelen were good in the beginning. Let's say half an hour maybe. Or a bit before the goal for first Genk goal from Munoz. Like a bit before that, Genk came more into the game, maybe 5 minutes. So let's say 25 minutes then for Mechelen. But then after that goal, it felt for a little while that Genk were like back at their what we're used to from them from last season, like at a really good form, without creating that much, but everything was flowing naturally, and then there were some streams of pressure and attacks going on Mechelen, but nothing really happened anymore. And then the second half that fell away again. So then Mechelen again took. They deserved that equalizer for sure. And then afterwards the game, well, it was a bit more sloppy, I guess, from both sides. Still quite some intensity, so that was good to see, but the level of football was not always as nice until indeed Bongonda came on, and after 2 minutes, I think he came on in the 78th minute, he scored already. Both teams had their moments. Yeah, then some ridiculous free kicks from both sides. 2 times the goalkeepers probably should have done better. Even after the 3-2, it could have gone both ways. It could have been easily another equalizer for Mechelen. But the coin fell to the other side, so Paintsel even made it a 4-2. It's maybe a harsh verdict that it's a 2-goal difference even. I guess a draw definitely was in this one, or a narrow victory to either side. For the rest, my main points, it's been the usual now. Oye really had a really great game as well, without being decisive, but he did play well, and it's always nice to see 4 wins in a row now. Not necessarily in all the best in the best circumstances or best games, but the best run of form that Genk had this season anyway. Of course, the 2 games before the playoffs were against teams that really did not have anything to play for, and even in the playoffs, the level is not always that great. But well, at least I hope it builds some confidence, and well, it was good to see some intensity in the team as well throughout the whole game, even when the level of play was not consistently high, but at least there was some intensity and some passion to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, we often talk in football, don't we, guys? About kind of the importance of just little things, fine margins, and this was absolutely one of those games because as Joris was saying, it very easily could have ended a draw. This and probably should have. I think a draw would have been a very fair result. I think Genk getting a little bit of luck, which ultimately was the difference. I think Bongonda was very, very creative and clever, particularly with the free kick. Wicked swerving it, but he just spotted that little gap in the wall as well, and that kind of came together for him. And obviously the fourth goal, just it lands at Pansel's feet, and he's not going to miss from there in late into stoppage time. But plenty of drama in this game. Plenty of drama. Good open game of football as well, from two good footballing sides, I think. I think from Mecklen's point of view, one thing I would highlight is I thought Thibaut Peer had an absolute nightmare of a game. He really did. He was getting run ragged in the first half by Luca Oyen, and then Bongonda was giving him a pretty torrid time in parts in the second as well. And he had a really, really dreadful game. And a quick look at social media afterwards, even some of the Mechlin fans were really piling on to him and talking about how awful his performance was, and that'll be a game for kind of him to forget. He really did get exposed a number of times and wasn't up to the speed and the creativity of the kind of Genk attack, or in fact anyone that he was tasked with looking after in that game. But a really good game. I think Rankin I know he was very frustrated afterwards. He did come out and talk about the third goal, in particular the one that ultimately won it. The free kick, he said, there's a gap in the wall, and he says that should just never happen. And I think from a coach's point of view, you're right, but I think you have to kind of credit Bongonda for spotting that and hitting it very quickly with the wicked swerve, as I was saying. So slightly tough one for Mechlin to take, because as Joris was saying, the first 20 minutes in particular, they were the better side. They were creating more, and they looked more likely to kind of score, and then Genk started to work themselves into the game, and yeah, good game from two sides who play football the way I think we all like to see it play.
Got a 4.7 on FODMAP as well to add to that.
I wonder if we'll see Rick Van Dongelen in the next game as a replacement. I mean, those two players that you mentioned that running ragged, though, Oyen and Bongonda, I mean, they've run quite a few defenders ragged, and Oyen will run a lot of defenders ragged as his career progresses, that's for sure. So in terms of kind of the table at that point, Friday night, end of Friday night, Genk obviously in second place with 32 points, Mechelen with 29. Sorry, Genk would have been top with 32 points.
Yes, at that point they were top, yeah. Yes.
My maths, I'm trying to work backwards and add it all up. This meant the scenario I was kind of hoping for was still possible, whereas if Charleroi could beat Ghent, then we'd have this really tight, close kind of table going on. However, they didn't manage to do that, despite Ghent missing a whole host of players. I mean, Hunt Olsen wasn't there, Tunaliga wasn't there, Depot was still out, who else wasn't there? Hjulsager was injured. Gladys was suspended. Van Huysenvik himself was suspended as well. So it's quite a big kind of change in terms of what Ghent had to put out there. But they still managed to get the win. I think for Charleroi, they were missing Ilham Ayalicha, which I think really did make a difference. Bayo, obviously, they weren't allowed to play him with him being on loan from Ghent. I know if Ghent planned this all along to get them into the playoffs and then them not have him playing checkers when they're playing chess or something like that, as they say. However, Charleroi did take the lead in this game. Wasn't much in the first half, wasn't the best of first half games, but Charleroi got a penalty thanks to a bit of VAR. Poor Darko Lamaik gave it away, pull of shirt at the back post. Upstepped Adam Zorgan to make it 1-0 to Charleroi. However, that man, Darko Lamaik, had the last laugh. He equalised for Ghent in the 53rd minute. If I remember which one that was his first goal. Yeah, his first goal. Really nice finish on the counter-attack. Charleroi were really open the whole game at the back to Ghent kind of pressing on the counter. Darko then made it 2-1. This one took forever to be given by VAR because they're trying to judge if Tissoudali was offside or not, and interfering with play. In the end, he wasn't even offside by the barest of margins. Darko, he probably should have scored with his first shot, but he did manage to kind of dribble it in with his left foot for the second one. For some reason, Lomberts, who was the stand-in manager, took him off, denied him a hat-trick. I'm sure everyone was fuming when that happened. However, Michael Ngaju and Gade made it 3-1 from a corner, and I mean, Charleroi in the second half were really quite toothless, I thought. I don't think Badji offered much up front in place of Bayo. They brought on Mbenza. He had a couple of long-range distance shots, not much really from him. Golazadze's kind of gone off the boil a little bit. Zaharie came on, looked bright for a little bit, did set up some stuff, but it was just a little bit too late. And I'd like to have seen him a bit earlier on. I thought he's been a reasonable bright spark for them so far this season, but he just seems to be kind of left on the bench a lot at the moment. And then Jackson Chatswire came on as well, but didn't manage to do much either. We also had a Gianno Bruno sighting for Ghent. I mean, who'd have thought that? He'd be on the bench instead of Lemite, but 2 goals for Lemite, guys. I mean, that's massive. Heinz now going to be telling everyone in the league's now asking and calling, looking for his services, because he told us that everyone in the league would kind of take him. However, I think I'm happy to say it, but do we think that's probably the end for Charleroi chances in this playoff too? That was kind of, I felt like that was the game they really did need to get a point or 3 points from, considering how Ghent were at the back in terms of their like absentees.
I think so. Like, well, the one reserve is if they still win every other game, but even then they need to hope that the other teams also play out some draws or anything, or drop some points. So it will be tough for them. It's not easy for me to say either, because of course they are built twice now against Genk. So their real last chance is probably next weekend, and I'm sure they will be up for that still. Yeah, I don't think they will catch 3 teams anymore with the small gap that there still is. There's only 12 points to divide, to get anyway anymore. So even a small gap might be too much, and I do think that is the case. Yeah, in the match, the first goal was really nice finish. Second goal, well, more the style that you would expect from someone that's been criticized so much, but the ball went into the net, so nobody can really complain, I guess. But yeah, definitely good for him, especially, yeah, indeed, after that a little stupid pull to Knezovic for the penalty for Charleroi. But Gent were the better side throughout most of this game, as far as I could see. So deserved victory for Gent as well.
I think Ed Still was asked actually in the run up to this game whether he felt it was a must win game for Charleroi, and he did say yes. So I think there was a feeling inside the Zebras camp that, you know, they really needed the 3 points if they were going to keep their playoff hopes alive. And Joris is right; it's still theoretically possible, but you know it would have to be kind of quite a collection of things to kind of come together in their favour now to, you know, for that to happen. The Charleroi Ultras were not happy after this game. They stayed after the game, made a lot of noise. Weren't for leaving the stadium to such an extent that Mehdi Baya actually came out and went over to the Ultras enclosure and tried to speak to them. And they were quite clear with him in asking him to get out of the club as well. So they're unhappy with him, as well as the performance in that game. I suppose in a way maybe expectations have been raised during the course of the season as well, because they have had a good season, especially when you bear in mind who they've lost as well. To have kind of hung in there and been, you know, as consistent as they have for the most part up until fairly recently. Has been pretty good, so it'll be a wee bit difficult to take for their fans, so I can understand the Ultras' frustrations there. On the other hand, I like to think that Hein was sitting at home with a good cold beer watching this game. I didn't entirely believe him when he said in his pre-match press conference a few days before that he wasn't going to go, he was going to sit at home, but it turns out he's a man of his word after all, and he didn't, which is fair enough, because I think, you know, although he would have been allowed at the game, he would have had to sit in the stand, but he would have had a chaperone as well, to make sure he wasn't taking any notes or texting anybody in the dugout. So I can see why he chose to stay away as well. Joris is right. I think Ghent were the better side, particularly in the second half. They upped the intensity a little bit. They kept hold of the ball much better. The first half was largely forgettable. Lamajic giving away that penalty at the end of the first half, which was a silly penalty, really did redeem himself big time. Joris is right. The first goal in particular is really nice. Times his run absolutely perfectly and is a really nice sweet finish as well, and is exactly the sort of thing that Van Huyzenbroek has been telling us. Look, I told you, he can do this. He can do it. He can be the man if he can produce that more often. And it was only last week that Lamajic himself was talking about his confidence having improved and he feels better about himself. So maybe this is the start of things kind of settling down for him, and maybe we will see some more consistency and more goals from him next season, now that he's kind of more settled in Belgium and kind of got over kind of the challenges of a move like that. Very impressive 12-13 minute spell though from the Buffaloes to kind of turn that game around, particularly as Ben was saying, when you consider who wasn't available for them. So a really good win for them.
Well, and let's see if Lemaich is, of course, still there next season. But
Yeah.
taking over a little bit of Ben's role, at least this weekend he scored more than all the teams combined in the two other playoffs.
So true. Yeah, I mean we've come to the end
Spoiler
of the goals
alert,
section.
maybe.
Yeah,
Slides, little spoilers.
From here on in, there are no more goals. So if goals are what you're looking for us to talk about, then you may as well stop listening now, to be honest. But no, anyway, let's, all jokes aside, let's look at kind of the table at the moment. So yeah, like Ghent leapfrog Genk. So they're on 34 points. Genk 2 points behind them with 32. Mechelen with 29. So they're about 5 points off that top spot now. And Charleroi are 7 points off Ghent with 27. So yeah, they've got to win all those games, but I just don't think it's going to happen. But yeah, let's move to the relegation playoff, shall we? The second leg. So going to this, Seraing had won away in Brussels in Molenbeek. They'd won that 1-0 thanks to George Mikotadze. That means it was still quite evenly balanced going into the second leg. There's an absolutely packed house at the Stade du Palais. And I mean, I didn't see any goals at all. They did see the final game of the career of Igor Dicamargo. Really nice at the beginning. He was given like a nice bunch of flowers, which he then was like, well, now what do I do with these? Because I need to go play a match. So he kind of ran to the bench and was like, someone take these flowers for me, please. He just got a really good reception. I really like to see that. Unfortunately for him, he didn't get a final goal. He probably had the best chance of the game. Molenbeek looked scared. I think me and you spoke about this, Scott, kind of after the game as well.
Yeah.
Like they looked scared to score. They were happier to kind of keep it at 1-0 for as long as possible and only really start to press and push for the game in the last 10 minutes. And by then it was too late. They just didn't really have the cutting edge up front. They were trying to get Dicamargo running in behind. He's 38. That's not his game. He hasn't done that for years. He's a player that wants to win the headers, win the challenges, bring others into play. I didn't really understand what they were doing. Hazard was a little bit more involved. He had some nice moments, but again, you didn't really know, okay, how are they going to score? Apart from that one moment where there was a really nice pass, I think it was Hazard actually, that played in Dicamargo, 1-on-1 with the keeper. And in my mind, you're like, this is the moment. This is kind of the final moment of his career. He's going to put this away and we're going to have a thrilling game. And he just kind of chipped over the ball, and it was just like, yeah, I think that's it. They brought on Ulare, they brought on Togui. There's a reason these two kind of struggled in 1A, and you could see it again. There wasn't, the balls into the box weren't that great for them to put it away. Like they were just kind of chucking the kitchen sink at it, but not really chucking the kitchen sink at it. Kind of comfortable in the end for Seraing. Finished 0-0 as we kind of alluded to. Seraing, congratulations to them. They'll stay in the league. Massive questions now about what is going to happen, because it looks like Metz are going down after they blew a 2-0 lead away to Montpellier in the last kind of 10 minutes there. So how many of these players are coming back, we don't know. More fan issues we had. But yeah, I think over the two legs, guys, I think we can all agree that it was pretty much deserved for Seraing to stay up. They were the better side over those two matches. They've been playing reasonably well these last couple of games in 1A as well. They were kind of coming into it a little bit of form, and I think just in terms of pure footballing ability, they were better than Molenbeek. I think Molenbeek clearly are not ready to make the step up to 1A. I think they need another year to kind of refine the squad, bring in a little bit more kind of cutting edge kind of creativity from what I saw. Scott, I know you've obviously watched them more watching 1B, but that's kind of my opinion. I think congratulations to Seraing, and Molenbeek will go down, but they'll definitely they seem like they're kind of trending on the upwards trajectory towards kind of they should be again challenging to get into 1A next year.
I think the thing worth kind of pointing out about Molenbeek is they obviously they'll be very disappointed, not to be able to take that opportunity. But I think it's worth remembering that nobody really expected them to finish in the playoff position at the start of this season. Nobody had Molenbeek down as the side who were likely to end up fighting for the opportunity of promotion, really, like that. So they've actually had a pretty good season. I think coming into both legs, they probably were slight favourites, just in the sense that they've been, serial winners for a number of weeks now, in a way that Seraing haven't, despite the fact Seraing were playing well. So there was always that doubt about, how much is the natural confidence of being on a good run going to count in your favour in something like this. And I think in Molenbeek's case, it just didn't happen for them. We know that sometimes, much like this year's cup final, sometimes big occasions can sort of drain the life out of a team, and they just don't really turn up. And that's really what happened. Aside from a 15-minute spell at the start of the first leg, in Brussels at the Edmund Martins in the home leg for Molenbeek. They really didn't produce anything at all, were overly reliant on Hazard to try and make something happen. And like you say, that really big moment where Hazard puts the through ball through to Dicamargo and it kind of stumbles off his heel, and I really felt for him, not just because obviously it was his last game and potentially the moment for them to get back into this tie. It is kind of, he just looked crestfallen, do you know what I mean? I think he kind of knew it summed up the way that they were playing. I think from Seraing's point of view, they were the better, definitely, over the both two legs. They had more energy, there was more creativity. And as I was saying last week, I think if their composure had been just a little bit better, then I think the tie would have been over in the first leg. And they certainly should have scored more than one as well. Kind of ironic that the tie was settled by the man who we knew had arguably the most quality out of both sides, Jord Mikatadze. He's ultimately been the difference, and that's him kept Seraing in Pro League 1A for another season, signed off at the end of the second loan spell. He'll be going back to Metz now. It's highly unlikely he's going to be coming back for a third spell. Metz will probably be looking to hold on to him now because their circumstances have obviously changed. Jean-Louis Garcia, Seraing manager, was saying just yesterday that, Metz's situation, impending relegation, changes everything from a recruitment perspective for Seraing, and that they're now much less likely to get, loan players from Metz who have real quality and potential, and they're going to have to look at, approaching things differently now in the close season. And his words were maybe go more Belgian, which I think is right, but this should have been happening earlier. So a lot of worries on the horizon, I think, for Seraing, but there's nothing new in any of this. These challenges were going to be there, whether they won the tie or not. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do over the summer.
Shame the riots that, of course, be after the game between the both fan sides. Last weekend it was one of the only games, or maybe even the only game that didn't have any riots. Now, these fan bases also got involved, so it's definitely an issue that will have to be addressed. And I'm sure it is getting taken care of, but we'll have to see what that will give. Practically. Well, one thing also says it all. No 1A side has not scored against Seraing in 2 games in both leagues, and so RWDM is not on 1A side. You can just see that in that simple stat to really simplify it a bit too much, of course. But that was a remarkable thing. Indeed, it's a bit weird. It's good for Dicamargo that he was still in the game, and nice for him to get some. A nice goodbye. He's going back to Brazil now, so to live the family life there. So that's good for him. But that they still had to put him up as the first choice striker is not the best sign, to be fair. But yeah, that I guess indeed they were not ready for 1A yet. One of the last attacks in the game was concluded with the cross came in from Hazard in true Hazard style with Rabona, which was quite another remarkable thing. It almost fell to the right foot as well, so it almost created a nice chance as well. But the Seraing defense was able to clear it. But yeah, that was just a nice thing to see as well. Seraing, I don't think they actually expected themselves to be not in last place this season. And I think it will be really difficult next season, especially since again we cannot say much about that. But if there will still be three teams being relegated, it will be very difficult for them to avoid the drop. Even more difficult than it would be otherwise. Let's grant them some time to celebrate staying another season, and getting really ready and preparing quickly as well, though, for that crucial next season for them.
Just to come back to Igor Dicamargo for a second, guys, actually, when you think about what an incredible career he's had in Belgian football, I mean, I think it's about 450 Pro League appearances with a number of clubs. I think there are 3 titles in there. There's a Belgian Cup as well. I mean, this is the stuff of legend, actually, regardless of what your team is. I mean, this is somebody who has played the majority of their career in Belgium and just a number of clubs and just had a great career and done well at all of the clubs, actually, being embraced by all of those fan bases and won some titles. So I'm sure when he goes back to South America, he will be happy to visit Belgium from time to time, and those clubs will always welcome him back as well. And on the fan riots at the end, we know that the new CEO of the Pro League, Laurent Paris, has come out very publicly now on a number of occasions and said that there are new security measures that will be coming in for next season, and we wait to see what they are. I hope that these are thought through measures and not measures that are rush through to address things that we don't want to see that ultimately in practical terms don't work or make things worse. So we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, no, definitely shout out to Dicamargo. I mean, you just look through his career. As you said, Brazilian born, but Belgian kind of national team player as well. Genk, Molenbeek, the previous Molenbeek, Standard Liège, then spent some time in Germany with Mönchengladbach, bit of time at Hoffenheim as well before coming back to Liège, back to Genk, bit of time in Cyprus with Apoel before the recent period of Mechelen, and then finishing it back off again back in Molenbeek under a different name. Fantastic career. It's going to be weird not to see him around, I guess. Even his time at Mechelen, he was still scoring goals at the ripe old age of like 36, 37. So congratulations to him on a nice career. It was nice to see kind of the appreciation that he got when he did go off, like all fans giving him a round of applause, kind of appreciating what he did. Yeah, I think, Joris, you're probably right about let's let Seraing celebrate this. I think as well, they probably would have had, well, you'd hope they have, like most clubs would have had, like kind of 2 recruitment strand plans. So like, if we go down, we'll do this. If we'll stay up, we'll do this. Whether they can now do this in terms of being in the Pro League A will remain to be seen. It really does depend on Metz. They're going to go down by the look of it. So what they want to do with some of those players and who they're going to give over if not. And then who's available for them to actually pick up, like who can they actually afford. So if it is, like you said, USAF, if they keep it with the 3 teams going down, I think a few other teams in 1A will be slightly happy that it's Seraing staying up because they will just presume that they're automatically going to take one of those spots and it's just 2 left for the rest of them that are going to struggle. So hopefully they can sort things out off the pitch and kind of come back with a competitive squad, at least. That'd be nice to see. Let's move on to the championship round, basically nothing changed, did it really? Like, no one scored, no one won, no one lost. It just stayed as it was. There were moments, I guess, within each game where that could have changed. Was that Antwerp against Union was the first one, finished 0-0. Union having more possession, having more shots, not more shots on target though. But if they'd been a bit more efficient, they probably could have won this game. Scott and Yost, I know you guys probably watched this a little bit more closely than I did. I wasn't able to see this one, and it's the first time I think that a game I haven't watched has finished 0-0. Usually they're like a goal scoring like fest, but this one wasn't. So quietly happy, but also not happy because obviously you want things to happen. You want teams to win. We don't want 0-0 draws. But how did you assess this one? Were Did Antwerp play with a bit more attacking kind of pressure, a bit more prowess than they did against Club Bruges, or were Union just a bit wasteful with the chances that they did create?
Oh my God. I think the pertinent question around this game is how the hell did Union not win it ultimately? You know, that last 20 minutes, there are 4 incredible opportunities, and on any other day they would have probably scored a couple of them, maybe even 3 of them, and put the game to bed. But yeah, I still have no idea how they didn't win it in the end, and they probably don't either. What do you think, Joris?
Yeah, I was saying that because you watched it. Well, let's give that away. That you watched it in. We watched the game. I watched it in live, and I was like, how many? They could have won 0-3 by in the last 10 minutes. Granted, before that, I would say the game was quite even. Well, it may be like indeed extended to last 15, 20 minutes. But before that, the game was quite even, and yeah, they could have gone both ways. But that was more. It was just not a great game really. Before that, for some reason, needed some more time this time around to get into first gear. They didn't start off like last week, or as we've seen before, like really rushing towards thing and scoring soon. But on the other hand, they're also known for scoring late on in the game, and well, they definitely did have the chances, and quite unusual indeed. Not much more to say that Undaf or Van Zer did not punish Antwerp in the end. In the end, the last 20 minutes were indeed the main thing about this game. There were a few things that could have gone differently. Like, I don't want to talk about the refs too much, but they did let go on a bit too much in this game, and definitely also the Varis red card compared to whatever is from last week, compared to whatever has happened not only in this game but in throughout the whole games. Well, that new rule really lasted one game apparently, even with the same referee. But that was not in this game. But yeah, the protesting rule, the Vadis that did not deserve it in hindsight. And if you see whatever is happening already only 1 week later across all fields, in all kinds of playoffs, they are not getting the cards out there. A few things on Antwerp then to highlight from the last games. I understand the change from last week a bit more, slightly more, because Frey actually hasn't scored any goal in the last 6 games, just 1 assist. And well, also maybe in general, if you have to avoid one game, if you cannot watch all games, but you have the choice which one, avoid the Antwerp game, because in the last 5 games they scored 3 goals themselves, and they had only 2 goals against, so they even get a positive goal difference there. But it's not, well, you would get more goals in one game in between Genk and Mechelen than you had in the last 5 games from Antwerp, from both sides as well. For taking a recent example, so yeah, that shows they indeed are, well, their defense is actually in general strong, except maybe the last 15 minutes in this game. And Bute has been a really solid goalkeeper this season. But attackingly, as we all know, they really depend on Frey, and now he is not providing them with, at least not with goals. I'm not saying he's playing bad, but he's not scoring them anymore. And well, also that is not a real surprise or new thing, but the Frey dependency is still a lot too high for them to be a real contender for the title as well.
Yeah, I think that's a great point around the reliance on Frey, which we've touched upon, a couple of times already, guys. And I think that's something they're going to have to look at over the summer, when they look to develop the squad and enhance it a little bit and really push even harder for the title next year with more investment. I think they need. Yeah, they need an alternative, and they need more flexibility there, and I'm sure that's something they'll be looking at. Felix Mazu afterwards talking about being a little bit disappointed about Union not being clinical enough, but he couldn't be too angry about it because of just how good they have been this season. And I think it's reached a point now where, with the big double header against Club Brugge coming up over the next couple of weeks, now would not be the time to say something out of line about that. It was really just one of those things. One of the things that really, really struck me about both the playoff 1 games this weekend, guys, was quite how physical they were. We know how physical Belgian football is, every week anyway, at all levels. But I thought the two championship playoff games this weekend were really, really intense physically, for a number of reasons. And this game was no exception. There was a good bit of needle in it in the right way, the way that we like to see. Faris Haroun getting himself into a bit of trouble with refs, and that, I think, ultimately being the reason he's pulled off at half-time. Yeah, echoes of Adija the previous week there. Yeah, really a couple of feisty encounters in the right way, and I enjoyed both those tussles.
And one more thing on this game, and that's a very unusual thing, especially at this level. There were 3 wrong throw-ins in the first half alone.
Yeah.
So like that should not happen. That's weird. That's a thing that really shouldn't happen at any level, and definitely not at playoff 1 level, Champions playoffs level.
No, definitely. I mean, when I'm playing Saturday League, if the guy that can't throw it goes to pick it up, I'm just sprinting over there to get the ball off him because you know he can't throw it, and it's just painful. I've seen that a couple of times. I'm like, come on, like, how hard can it be? So
yeah,
at
and
the top
here
level, it's a fine.
Yeah, and it's, of course, it was not one player either. So in this game,
Yeah, like contagious. It's a fine. It's got to be a fine, hasn't it? I mean, that's the sort of thing, when they review the games and watch them back on a Monday or a Tuesday, like that's got to be one thing you pick up on. And that person you got to name and shame, and they've got to be out there practicing their throw-ins because, I mean, come on, that's ridiculous.
There's that guy as well. I can't remember his name offhand now that throw-ins have come up, guys. The set piece throw-in specialist taker, the guy who goes into clubs. He's been at some elite clubs and spent a few weeks with them working on set pieces around throw-ins and stuff. Can't remember his name. It'll come back to me after we've recorded. Of course, it will. The way these things work.
It's a Dane. I can tell you that, and he worked with Gent before as well.
Yeah,
but it's a Dane. Right, but I'm not getting further myself.
Everybody.
There's a Danish man somewhere.
Yeah, Chris and Alex at Union will maybe be having a little bit of chat about that this week, and discreetly, having a word with Felix, saying, you know what I mean, do you want us to bring him in for a wee while? Yeah. just a wee refresher.
Thomas Grönemark.
Oh, there you go.
I mean,
thanks, Joran.
If they want to pay someone to show people how to take a throw, and I'm more than happy to be paid to do that. Because, that's something you learn as a kid. Like, come on. Let's move on then to the other game, which finished 0-0. But it does set, like as you kind of said there, Scott, it sets it up really nicely for these kind of double headers between Union and Club Brugge because nothing's changed. They're going into it the same, and Bruges weren't able to take advantage of Union in this one. Should have had a penalty. Magajan pushes Charles de Ketelaere like as he's running to head the ball, which like at first when I first saw the replay, I was like, oh, he's gone for a diving header there. That's interesting. But then you watch the replay, like, no, he hasn't gone. He's fallen over because he's been pushed in the back. VAR does nothing, which is just like, come on, that's what you're there for. Like it's a penalty like all day.
Yeah.
I mean, that was just ridiculous. On the Anderlecht side of things, again, I only managed to catch kind of the end of this game, but Anwar Aitalhaj had a great chance. He linked up really well with Rahman, and I just need to kind of like shift it onto his left foot to hit it, but he wanted to take it with his right, and it just got blocked quite easily. One issue, I guess, for Club Brugge coming out of this is a really unfortunate injury to Mats Ritz. It looks like he's going to be out for 6 months. It's a massive shame because he's been playing really well. He's been like a revelatory goal-scoring midfielder for them this season, and they're definitely going to miss him because I think since Schroeder came in, and even a little bit before then, he was playing really, really well, and he's been playing at such a high level. Such a shame for his season to end in such a way. For Anderlecht, really interesting to see Lafayov dropped. No Yari Vachel either. Amuzi came in. You'd think if a further had been dropped, it would have been Aitalhaj that came in, but instead it was Christian Arnstad, the Norwegian. And Scott, I know you want to talk about him. Lots of people have been talking about how impressed they are with this young man from this game.
Oh, bloody hell, yeah. Let's talk about Christian. I mean, I think, those who know a little bit more about, the purple talents, as many people refer to them, will already know about Christian Arnstad, and nobody really expected him to start this game. He didn't. I mean, he was telling a lovely story after the game about how after the training session, the last training session before the game finished, company came up to him immediately and said that he'd be starting, and he phoned his parents who said they were going to come to Brussels for the game, but they weren't able to make it in the end, which was unfortunate because he actually had a really good game. He really did. And there's something about, young players with talent, guys, isn't there? Sometimes, there's a fearlessness about them and in a way that they approach the game game that just kind of belies their years. And there's something about the quality he has and showed in this game that reminds me a little bit of Luca Oyen's level of footballing intelligence and maturity. You would never guess they are the age that those two players are. And the big thing for me, and I was wondering this actually after the game, was they've got a really interesting choice to make now, Anderlecht, I think, because they are talking to Christian Armstad's dad, Roar, who's his agent as well, about extending his contract, because I think he only has a year left in it, and they are keen to reach an agreement. They do want him to stay at Anderlecht, but it's going to be really interesting to see now whether the club and company decide to bring him in to being part of the A squad more often now and give him some game time, almost as a bit of a challenge and motivation to Verscharen. Or will he go into the B squad and play week in, week out with the under-23s in 1B next season? I'm really keen to see what they do there, because I think he is, a bit like Luca Oyen, I think he's ready to step in there now as and when needed. So there is a really strong argument, for him to be part of that A squad more regularly. And you would hope if they do go down that route that he would get some game time. Although understandably he's going to be behind Verscharen initially. Anderlecht in this game for me much improved generally. Ultimately they didn't create much up top, which is the only real negative from them. But generally speaking, big improvement on recent weeks, and they showed some real physical fight, which I liked. I was talking last week about how I feel that that's what's really been missing from the squad just generally. They're excellent at passing and movement. They have all the finesse, an abundance of skill in there, but it's just the physical side of the game, the dirty aspects that I think they've always been a little bit light on and didn't in this game. They really did roll their sleeves up and get stuck into the things that I think have been missing a little bit. And I just hope that one of the things they can take out of this is that they need to bring that to their game a little bit more often, and not just when they're playing big games like this against Club Brugge, because we know that these two don't like each other very much. Ben mentioned the definite penalty inside the first 5 minutes, the push into Ketelaere. Absolutely, it's a penalty. The referees department has now come out and admitted that it should have been a penalty, although I don't quite understand why they're saying that it should have been a yellow for Mayagian as a result of that, because actually it's still a direct goal scoring opportunity and he's not so far out wide the Ketelaere. So for me it's a penalty and a red for Magayan, who by the way, much like Thibaut Peer for Mechelen, had an absolute nightmare of a game. Some really bad fouls, and game to forget for Magayan, definitely.
It is a penalty, so I'm not discussing that, but it's been a topic in media for 2 days straight,
Yep.
even in the TV news for it. Yeah, that's just ridiculous. In general, the whole media hysteria on this, there's a lot of tension in the Club Brugge side for sure.
Yeah.
And they should not focus only on that. Otherwise, they won't make it. They should focus on the footballing things. And they ultimately, both teams didn't play that well, but indeed there was a lot of intensity, and they should have done something more on the footballing side. And despite not having gotten that penalty, get over it. I know I'm one to say, because I often complain about the referees in general, which, well, I agree, of course, it was a penalty, but and I sometimes go too far here, maybe.
I think it's an interesting point, though, Joris, actually, that you make about the kind of hullabaloo around the penalty that wasn't, because I think the fact that the game did end in a draw, I think, has got a lot to do with this, because, Club didn't win the game as well, so it's the one thing that the mainstream media have come back to kind of focus on. I don't think it would have been talked about if the penalty had been awarded and they'd kind of got the 3 points. So it's as much about the kind of pressure, as Joris was saying, kind of brewing inside the Club Brugge camp and the mainstream media's desire to kind of keep the title challenge as meaty as possible. But I mean, Joris is right. It's already intense and interesting enough without that penalty being kind of over debated anyway, isn't it, guys?
It's already a different thing again, but it was nice to see Hanno Zelkwa making his return in the second half in the Anderlecht side as well. Did not expect him back this season. But well, he did well, definitely, to come back in this game. And another small side fact is, of course, also about Arnstadt. Well, he's now started 2 games. One really bad game against Club Brugge last season, but as I mentioned it here, twice against Club Brugge. This time it was already way better than in that game, and definitely also in a young side as well, like with Kanan also in the midfield. So I'm sure that the Anderlecht fans that love their youth players, well, were delighted with that as well.
Yeah, no, I think they definitely were. Just seeing their reaction on Twitter and social media after the game, like how many people were like, "Yeah, this kid's special." I think you're both right. I think if they go on to win the game and if Club Brugge won the game from a different like 1-1-0 and that no one would really care much about the penalty, would they? But it's just one of those things. If you don't win the game, you look back and you be like, "Oh, that didn't go our way." But like we're saying, it really does set up these next 2 weeks where Club Brugge play Union. And it's kind of that should decide the title in a sense. If Union can go unbeaten in those games, they maintain if they say it's 2 draws, keep that 3-point gap. So they're currently on 43 points, Club Brugge on 40, Anderlecht on 33, and Antwerp on 33 as well. So they're already 10 points adrift at this moment in time. So they're kind of playing for European kind of places, and I guess in that sense, and kind of trying to be a spoiler for the
The
other
last
2.
thing that Union should do, though, is try to grind out 2 draws to get into
Yeah.
it at
Yeah.
least like
Yeah.
with that mentality. But I don't think they will.
They definitely won't. Yeah, they're going to go to win those games because that's just how they play. First game of that kind of double header, I guess we can call it, is a Union home game. So that could be quite big. Get the crowd in, kind of big boisterous crowd, kind of push towards they're getting the 3 points there. They'll definitely be aiming for that. Then Antwerp play Anderlecht on that Sunday as well. So yeah, Friday night we have Charleroi hosting Genk and then Ghent against Mechelen. I guess, guys, out of those 2 games, looking at Ghent, Mechelen, this is Mechelen, like they need to win this one, don't they, to kind of claw back that gap to Ghent and Genk. I mean, this weekend coming up, it's going to be really interesting, isn't it? Lots of things can change, lots of things can move around. I think by the end of this weekend, we'll have a little bit of a clearer picture, especially in playoff 2. Because if Mechelen lose and Genk win, I guess we kind of think that's probably going to be too big a gap for them to kind of claw back there. And on the other hand, where the title's going could really, like, if Club Brugge win that game, we're all leveled again going into the last kind of round of the playoffs.
Yeah, it's all playoff madness as well. Hint could also be quite certain about winning Europe playoffs, and also that has consequences then for the teams inside the Champions playoffs. So these things also could all happen. It's a roller coaster as always.
Yeah, it's incredible, and that that game at the Joseph Marion on Sunday is if you can only watch one game this weekend, everybody, and this one is one of the free and live games on Mola TV in the UK. If you watch your Belgian football in the UK, that's the one to watch. My feeling about it is that if Union can win this weekend, then that's it. I don't, I think this is almost Bruges' last chance. I don't think a draw's a bad result for Bruges if that's the way it was to finish. But I think a Union win, and that's it this weekend. That's definitely my view, because I don't see it falling apart for Union after that. That's how big a home win is. And equally, if Bruges were to win, then it's still absolutely going to be a nail biter. So I'm really, really looking forward to that one, big time.
Yeah, definitely can't wait for that and all the other games. But anyway, that probably wraps up this episode for this week. As always, guys, thank you for joining me.
Pleasure.
Yes, pleasure as always. And I'll share my favorite Igor Dicamargo moment now. Saved it until the end, which is his 2 goals against Dortmund to kick them out of the Intertoto Cup back in the days with Genk, which was a real surprise. And then Genk lost against Leiria, I believe, of Portugal. A team they should have won against, but it's one of my first footballing memories as well, or real memories that I still have in I still remember. Indeed, there's definitely some more moments that I had, but this one definitely, this game definitely is up there.
Man, the Intertoto Cup. I'm sure that'll bring back a lot of memories for a lot of people.
2004, this was.
That was. There you go. I'm sure it'll be on YouTube somewhere as well. We may be able to share that later on. As per usual, if you enjoyed this episode of the podcast, please do leave us a review on your podcasting app of choice. You can also get in touch with us on Twitter. It's @Belgian Podcast, or you can get in touch with us through Gmail as well. It's belgianfootpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks once again for listening, and we'll see you very soon on another episode of the Belgian Football Podcast.